Hello, it's Michelle Lupton here, and today I'm in a video hop to celebrate Ardyth reaching 3,000 YouTube subscribers. What an amazing achievement. Now after you've watched my video, make sure you leave a comment because there are plenty of prizes to be won, and also there'll be a link in the video description below for the next person in the hop, so make sure you click on that and see what they've been making. There are about 20 participants in this blog hop. There are prizes to be won on every single stop, so make sure you leave plenty of comments for more chances to win. Now when you do leave a comment, please make sure you let us know whether you are in the US or anywhere else in the world, because some of the prizes are restricted to US addresses only. There are heaps of details on Ardyth's blog, so make sure you check that out. Also, if you get lost along the way, make sure you check out Ardyth's blogs as well. The prizes are going to be announced on Saturday, October 19th, so make sure you make your comment before then. So you can see that I've already started my card, and I've started using a whole bunch of Catherine Puller inks in a wonderful rainbow. So I had the colours, the red one is Samba, then I had Tiki Torch and Tiara. So I actually started inking with Tiara in the middle, the yellow colour. And then I also have Aquatini Suede Shoes, which is by far my favourite. I absolutely love that colour. And I also picked up Pixie Dust, which is the sort of purpley colour. But I ended up not using that because I kind of ran out of space. So what you can see I'm doing here, I used some watercolour cardstock. And because I was thinking of adding a whole lot more water than I actually did, but I didn't. And I'm using my life-changing blender brushes from Picket Studios, which just give you such an amazing blend. And you can see how wonderful they are. You don't actually need to have separate brushes for separate colours, because just a quick wipe off on a damp baby wipe gets rid of the colour. So they're really wonderful that way. Now you can see that I'm now adding the Aquatini colour, which is this sort of aqua greeny blue colour, and I decided that it was not giving me the best blend, the nicest blend that I wanted between that colour and the yellow Tiara colour. So I thought, oh, I really should have picked a green that had a bit more yellow in it rather than this green that had so much blue in it. So luckily enough, I also had lime Rickey. So I pulled that out and just added some of this lime Rickey, which is a much more yellow green, in between the Tiara and the Aquatini, and I thought that gave me a much nicer blend. And then towards the bottom, I am using my favourite suede shoes. So usually when I do a rainbow, I like to include all the way to purple, but yeah, I just ran out of space. Sorry. So that's what I finished with here. So I hope you have already hopped along a whole lot of the participants in this blog hop today. So there are heaps and heaps of participants and lots of wonderful videos to be seen. So if you've started with my video today, make sure you go and visit Ardyth's blog so that you can check out all of the hoppers along the way. Okay, so I finished with my ink blending, and I could have actually spent a little bit more time getting a bit more of a nice blend between these colours, but I felt I didn't really need to for two reasons. One, because the next thing I was doing was adding some splashes of water, and I was quite liberal with my splashes of water here. I just used a wet paintbrush, dripping paintbrush really, and added a whole lot of drops. And then of course I needed a little bit more shine. Always needs some shine. So I'm doing my little Kelly Ladavola trick here. Got my Perfect Pearls powder, mixed it with a little bit of water, and did the flicking all over again. So this not only adds a sort of bit of visible texture, so a little bit of interest, but also some shine, which is always good. You can never have too much shine really. So what I'm going to be adding to this background is a die cut from Paper Rose. So Paper Rose is an Australian company, and they're based in Adelaide in South Australia, and this particular die has to be one of my favourites of theirs. It's absolutely stunning. It's called Blooming Flower, and I just love it because quite often I've used it with alcohol inks backgrounds behind it. I really like it with a rainbow behind it. I've done it colouring in the flowers and the background. There's lots of different ways that you can use it. Does take a while though to punch out all the little bits, because there's heaps and heaps of tiny little bits on this. Now, I toyed around with the idea of just popping it straight over the top and having a rainbow border around the edge as well as behind, but I decided not to. One thing I do find with this particular die, and it's because of Australian card sizes, it's kind of sized to fit nicely with an even border around it on an Australian A6 card front, which is a quarter of an A4 piece of paper. But the cardstock that I use for my card bases is generally it's Neenah Solar White, and it's American letter size. So you've probably heard me say this before. I cut down my cards to a weird size. So my card fronts are generally 5.5 by 4 1/8. But either way, whether I was using a standard American card size, which is 5.5 by 4 1/4 inches, or whether I was using Australian card, I generally cut it down the same size anyway. So I just had to make my card a little bit narrower. But that's okay. And I just eyeballed it, so I don't know exactly the width of the card now. I just eyeballed it and thought, okay, how do I get a nice sort of even border around the edge? So I have glued the die cut, the panel, to the rainbow background, and you can see that shine popping through every so often. And I'm just adhering it flat onto the card front. And now I am adding a sentiment, and I've chosen a sentiment from this Picket Fence Studio stamp set. The stamp set's called Let's Shake Our Tail Feathers because of the sort of big peacock tail feather image in this stamp set. But I just love this sentiment, and I thought it was a nice one to put on this card. So I'm just prepping my cardstock here with some anti-static powder tool, and please don't look at the state of my Versamark ink pad. I actually posted something on my Facebook page just a couple of weeks ago. I'd been making a couple of cards using this Versamark ink pad, and they just didn't work. I was trying to do embossing onto watercolour cardstock, and I chucked 4 cards in the bin, 4 panels of watercolour cardstock in the bin, because I just couldn't get the embossing right. It didn't, the powder didn't adhere properly. It was a bit blotchy. It was just really bad. And then I accidentally put my hand onto the ink pad, and I realised it was really dry, and I just needed to re-ink my ink pad. So I wasn't being unco. I was just an idiot for not re-inking my Versamark ink pad. And I think that's why this... I had to actually redo this embossing as well. So the first time I did it, the embossing wasn't perfect, so I did it again, possibly because at that stage my ink pad needed a bit of re-inking. All right, so when I cut out this sentiment, you can see it's got some rises and fallers, so some letters that go up above the line of the rest, like the D in a door, and it's also got descenders, so the Y's that go below the line. And I could have just cut it straight across and had a much wider band of black, but if I do that, it covers up the rainbow, and the rainbow is everything. So I quite often do this. I cut it as close to the sort of main line of the text as I possibly can, but then I just fussy cut around those letters that go above and below that main line. So just using my little sharp scissors here to get in next to those letters, and then I'll be adhering this onto the card front. So that's going to be pretty much the card. I'm just going to cut the sentiment strip on a bit of an angle, again just to add a little bit of interest there. I quite often with this die, the background die, I quite often have my card in portrait orientation, but I decided today to put it in landscape just for something a little bit different. I also decided to pop up the sentiment on a bit of a foam strip. So this foam adhesive is from Stampin' Up. So it's very, very useful when I want to use this on a sentiment strip, because usually I have to cut down little foam squares or foam hexagons or whatever into teeny tiny pieces, but this narrow little strip can be very, very useful. I have actually used this foam mounting strip before around the edge of this particular cover die, because you can see there is a border around the edge, and these foam strips fit nicely behind that. Now I decided that, yeah, I did have some shine in the background with the Perfect Pearls, but I wanted a little bit more shine. And I put these sequins in place, and I just decided, no, it didn't look right. I wanted something that was a little bit less blingy, but still added a bit of shine. So I pulled out these little clear raindrops from Studio Cartier, which I really like. They're just little glass sort of bead things. And they add a little bit of interest and a little bit of shine with also a little bit of elegance, not quite as blingy as a sequin. I grew up doing calisthenics, so I kind of got a bit over sequins when I was little, but I use them quite often on my cards. But sometimes you just need something not quite so shiny. So I used some of my Lawn Fawn liquid adhesive to add those, and once I've done that, I'm now absolutely done with this card. So when I've adhered these, I'm just going to show it up to the camera a little bit more closely so you can see the shine and the sort of texture in the background from those water droplets. And those Studio Cartier clear raindrops, they kind of blend in a little bit with the splatters of water. So you can see that lovely shine that you get in the background. So thank you very much for watching. Please continue on with this blog hop, and congratulations to Ardyth for her 3,000 subscribers celebration. Bye.